Hello, everyone. Again, welcome back to our continuing series, Understanding CBET. And you have been looking at our fourth principle, and that is assessment of learning outcomes. So, I have been unpacking supportive materials. And in our previous tutorial, we finished on the written assessments. And today, you want to look at another very important tool that we need to develop, and that is practical assessment tool. So, practical assessment tools are regarded as performance-based assessment. And we did look at what performance-based assessment mean, and we say that they're basically practical evaluations that are designed to measure a learner's ability to perform specific tasks and apply their knowledge in the real-world scenarios. So basically, you're looking at a candidate able to perform different tasks based on performance criteria and the standards that are involved in performing that tasks. Uh, you're also saying that practical assessment focus on demonstrating competency rather than just theoretical understanding. And we do look at, for us to test theoretical understanding, we're going to use written assessments. But if you are to demonstrate the competency of a candidate, then the best is to develop practical assessments. And that's the major focus of this tool. And what constitutes a practical test? And this is according to TVET CEDA guideline, and they have highlighted specific areas that are regarded as practical tests. One of those is role plays. When you're talking about role plays, they're essentially the acting out of a scenario where candidates takes on different roles and improve their responses. So you can use this as part of your practical assessments, and then you reward uh, scores based on certain criteria. Another aspect is simulation, and you can use this to assess different learning outcomes practically. And yet, over simulations are imitation of real-world processes or systems. So you can use that as part of your practical tests. Another aspect is use of practical tasks. And you're talking about practical tasks, they're saying that these are hands-on activities that require a candidate to apply knowledge and skills to achieve specific outcomes. And this is where majority of our unit of competency, for us to assess competency of a candidate, then majority of us are going to organize for practical tasks. The other bit is you can apply demonstration. And when you're talking about demonstration, here we are trying to showcase competency in performing a specific tasks or using a particular tool. So it's essential performance where you actively show your skills rather than just explaining verbally. So a candidate has the opportunity to demonstrate a particular task or using specific tools for that unit of competencies. You can use this or employ demonstration as part of your practical tests. The other bit is projects. And there's some unit of competency that will require you to develop projects. And these are involve a set of interrelated tasks that are carried out to achieve specific goal. So it could be an individual tasks or projects, or it could be a team effort. So depending on the learning outcome, then you can employ projects as a part of your practical tests. And the last bit is presentations. And there are some projects that are required to be presented as part of demonstrating competency of a candidate. And you talk about presentation, it is a way to communicate information, can be used to persuade an audience, or you want to showcase your finding from a project. And there's some unit of competency or qualifications that require you develop projects and then you present them. So all these constitute what a practical test is. And this is what TVET CDAC advocate for. So you can demonstrate this or any one of these as part of your practical uh, assessments. So, what are the considerations that you need to consider when you're developing written assessment, practical assessment? One is good to understand that core unit of competencies at least must have a practical. In scenarios where qualification core units don't have practicals, then you need to have case studies. And these are requirements actually when you're developing summative uh, assessments for TVET CDAC. So all unit of competence, the core units, at least must have practical. In cases where it is not identified, then you need to develop case studies. The other bit is when you're developing practical tests, you need to bear in mind that these practical tests can be performed with the locally available materials. So always bear that in mind when you're developing these assessments, especially when you're called upon by TVET CDAC, then you really need to think about institutions that are in the city and those that are in the at the sub-county level, the TVCs. So it's very important you factor all those. Whatever you could have in national polytechnics, probably you need to look at a way on using locally available materials. So bear in mind when you are called upon to develop a practical assessment, then bear that in mind. The last bit is, rather the last bit is to adhere to TVET CDAC guidelines. And we did look at in our previous video what constitutes uh, in the practical assessment, and we say that at least 80% of the critical aspects need to be assessed. The other bit is our benchmark will always remain our occupational standard against which this performance is measured. Basically, you need to consider all these when you're developing assessment tool. Again, what are the tips that you can use when you're developing practical tests? One is it need to be uh, clear assessment criteria need to be very clear. So you are saying that assessment criteria need to be clear, and here you're talking about that the test should have clearly defined goals and criteria for evaluation. The other bit is the practical tests need to be realistic and should provide relevant tasks. And here you're talking about they should reflect the actual tasks that are performed in a job or in an area of study. So basically, you want to look at the real work scenario and set that in your practical assessments. The other bit is you need to have variety of tasks. And you're talking about tasks here, looking at our performance criteria. And you are talking about the test should include variety of tasks to assess different aspects of competency. And as we are saying that at least 80% of your critical aspects need to be assessed. And that will give you a wide range of different tasks that a candidate need to conduct to achieve that competency that is required. The other bit is your practical tests need to have standard conditions. When you're talking about standard conditions, you're talking about issues that include factors like time, resources that are provided, and procedures for that assessment. And basically, those are the standard conditions that your practical assessment need to have. And the last bit is you need to provide clear instructions, and you need to specify the time for that uh, practical assessment. So you need to provide clear instruction and sufficient time to practice or familiarize themselves with the testing environments. You're talking about the candidates before the actual assessment begins. And you're going to look at that practically, where you need to define the time in a logical framework. For example, for how long should a candidate take to prepare or conduct different variety of tasks? So you need to provide that. So in our next video, we are going to look at now concentrate how do we develop uh, a practical test, now practical. And again, you're going to look briefly on what are those specific guidelines that TVET CDAX has given when it comes to practical tests. So thank you for your time. And again, I want to echo your support for the channel. Please subscribe, share, and like these videos. So let's meet in our next tutorial. Thank you.